My name is Karen Loll, Karenloll. Thank you, Senator Campbell, and all the members of the committee. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a simple, average person. My days are filled with chauffeuring my kids around to all their activities, laundry, grocery shopping, and all the other things that parents do. I don't sit on any boards. I don't organize any committees. I don't have any community or business influences. I'm a mom and a consumer. I have 3 boys. Hayden is 11, Blaine is 8, Carson is 5. My oldest 2 were born at St. Elizabeth's. We had wonderful certified nurse midwifery care, both in the hospital and for the prenatal care. Both births were simple and completely uncomplicated. The hospital staff followed everything I had asked for in my birth plan. I never felt like it was a nuisance to the nurses, even though some of my requests were quite out of the norm. When I found out I was pregnant with my 3rd child, I knew immediately that I did not want to go back to the hospital. My births had been so simple, a hospital seemed like overkill. I didn't want to have to drive to the hospital while I was in the middle of some very intense labor pain, because getting to the hospital was probably the worst pain I experienced. I didn't want to have nurses constantly waking me for blood pressure checks, blood tests, or other standard procedures. I didn't want to have to sleep in that unbelievably uncomfortable hospital bed. I didn't want to have to feel like a prisoner again. The hospital refused to release me even when I asked, because the proper number of hours had not passed. I didn't want my child born into a building filled with sick people. I went back to my midwife and told her my plan for giving birth at home. She was not happy. She was obviously worried about the safety and tried to talk me out of it. I tried to talk her into coming into my house. I promised her I would never tell anyone if they asked. I told her she could just sit in the living room and stand by just in case she was needed. She refused all of my requests and stated she just couldn't risk disobeying the law. She could lose everything. I spent my pregnancy researching birth because I knew I wouldn't have anyone with any medical training at the birth, and so I wanted to be prepared. I networked with other moms online that had unattended births. I read books about how to deal with complications. I drew up a list of situations that I would need to go to the hospital for. I ordered birth supplies like clotting herbs in case of bleeding and an umbilical clamp. I talked to my friends and family about our plan to give birth at home without a midwife. Everyone was dumbfounded that Nebraska law wouldn't allow midwives into my home to attend the birth. Then they would try and talk me out of it. But after a few minutes, it would become extremely obvious that there was no argument that would change my mind. I wanted to give birth at home, and I was going to make it happen. My husband was extremely nervous. He had been at the first 2 births and knew pretty much what to expect, but he still wanted a midwife there and tried to find someone. We contacted a midwife from out of state, but determined that driving out of state defeated the entire purpose of having a home birth. The birth of our son again went very smoothly. He was born in our family room in a big pool that was bigger than the tubs available at the hospital. As soon as he was born, I climbed into my bed and rested without interruption. After a bit, I called my midwife and made an appointment. I drove myself and the baby to the office for a check and received a few stitches. We both checked out just fine. My story isn't unique. There is no better way to rile up a mother than to question her parenting choices: breast or bottle, spanking or timeouts, stay at home or working mom. The list goes on. We do what's best for our family every time, and we will defend those choices to the bitter end. Any family that wants a home birth in Nebraska will make it happen one way or another, even if it means going out of state, hiring an underground midwife, or going it alone. I ask you today to please help Nebraska families to keep birth as safe as possible and allow them to hire midwives to come into their homes and attend births.
Thank you, Mrs. Loll. Any questions? Thanks for coming in your testimony.